What happens when two seasoned business leaders get together? They talk shop, of course. Sit back and listen in as Scott DeLong and Vince Moiso share from their experience around current issues facing executives, entrepreneurs, and their leadership teams. The CEO Podcast starts now.
Hey everybody, Vince Moiso here from the CEO Podcast. I'm here as always with Scott DeLong.
Hi, folks.
And as we're getting in the habit of just starting off the right way, you can of course check us out on Spotify. Search for the CEO Podcast or search either of our names. We'd love for you to follow us there and leave us any nice feedback that you feel compelled to do. You can check us out on Apple Podcasts. Do the same there. You can follow us on the Apple Podcast. Search the same way and leave us any reviews. We would love to hear from you.
I'm going to go a bit harder on the reviews. We really need some reviews. It would be helpful to do that. According, doing a lot of research. This book is coming out now, and doing a lot of research on that. And it is the reviews more than anything else that matter to the algorithms.
Yeah.
So if you like what you hear, give us a few stars, write something in that you like about it. We really would appreciate it.
Yeah, we're just looking to expand our podcast and the reach. We've had so many incredible loyal followers and some really great feedback for topics of discussion. And certainly people that have reused our podcast episodes in training and teaching and coaching. And there's been just so many different applications for our podcast that honestly I continue to be humbled with the personal feedback that I get, especially when I'm at trade events and things like that. And I've got people that come up to me and talk about the podcast. And we would love if you could leave us a review. It would help expand our reach. So you can do that there. Also check us out on YouTube. So if you prefer to watch, because we have received that feedback from several of you that you actually prefer watching versus just listening. And you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, the CEO Podcast. Again, if you just search the CEO Podcast, Vince Moiso or Scott DeLong, that'll come up and you can subscribe there. And we'd love for you on any of those videos, just leave some feedback. You can leave comments, like it, things like that.
And you can always get a hold of us at scottandvince@gmail.com as well. Comments, questions, future topics, all that kind of stuff. So we're trying to encourage communication, basically. So the more we hear from you, the better the topics are going to be.
Yeah. And as always, just appreciate you listening. So I'm going to dive right in, Scott, to our topic, and we're going to be talking about emotions. and Scott, just for our listeners, Scott, if you didn't know, he just released his book, and you can check out Lead to Goals, and you can go on the ceopodcast.net. It'll take you there as well. And you can follow Scott in his journey of this book launch, very recent. Check it out on Amazon. Search Scott DeLong, the author, and this book will come up. But very specifically, I know I'm plugging for Scott because Scott's humble enough that he didn't want to do that on his own. But here's what hit me, Scott, and this is what I want to jump in for our listeners is as we talk about, we've talked in previous podcast episodes about emotional intelligence. Right. You teach a course on emotional intelligence. Yeah. I've taken that course with some of my EO Forum mates, and it had an incredible impact on me. I shared with you earlier that that course even changed the way I listen, changed the way that I coach in a lot of different ways. Now, you have a chapter in your book that talks specifically about emotional intelligence. And what hit me really hard was right out of the gate, you have a quote, and I'm going to read it. Most business people are adept at reading the room and gauging what others think and feel, but they are often poor judges of their own behaviors and how others view them.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting to me because I think that is so prevalent among entrepreneurs and so prevalent among businesses where and especially in leadership, even in management, where you're just completely oblivious of the behavior and how it even impacts others.
Honestly,
and then,
it's in any position of power is where these
no question.
these blind spots happen, right? People just do what we ask, and we're not really aware how we're asking, how these emotions affect how we're asking, and the impact that has on others.
Totally.
Right?
Well, not only that, and because I want to add this, because I think this is, and I like how you turned that and you said those that are in a position of power.
Right.
Because here's the impact of that. Others in that meeting are afraid to tell you.
Yeah, they are.
They're afraid to speak up and tell you how childish the behavior is sometimes, literally how it is completely disruptive at times, or certainly how they view you as a leader. So you want, if let's just say a goal is to earn respect, right?
Right.
Well, so then you got to ask yourself, when you act in that way and you act over emotionally, or you want something so bad that you get so attached to it that you can't even be productive in a meeting, ask yourself, how is that behavior winning me the respect of my peers?
Sure, that's a good question. So, but I want to be clear on this, on emotions. So we talk about the 7 basic emotions, and only a couple of them are positive, right? Joy and maybe surprise can be positive, but the rest are looked at as negative. Anger and frustration and sadness and all those seem like negative emotions. I don't want to minimize the impact of a negative emotion. It's there for a reason. There's value in having that negative emotion.
Yeah.
For instance, it elicits a response and change, right? If you're in tune to it. And I think we need to feel the emotions. I think we need to recognize, feel them, label them, so that we can manage our behaviors, not control, but manage our behaviors. Right? I've talked several times about the difference between a teapot and a pipe bomb. Right? A tea kettle has a little vent at the top where you can release things. Right? Otherwise, it'll just continue to build steam and then explode like a pipe bomb. Same thing with human beings, right? We need to be able to learn how to manage those emotions. If you try to control them, you turn into that pipe bomb. You will blow.
Yeah, I think control, it's funny because there was a point in my life, just to experience here, there was a point in my life where I thought I could control my emotions.
Yeah.
When the reality is that there is no control, right? That I think control is the wrong word. You use the right word, the proper word, which is manage.
Sure.
And the ability to manage emotions is incredible. I know some people too that even, you're right in a position of power, but I know some people that are incredibly intuitive. So like when I thought about this topic, I thought about several different people and certain situations that come to mind. They're incredibly intuitive about others, like so much so we could be having a conversation about one person or the next, and I get so much insight from that person. I'm like, wow, I didn't think of that in that way. Right. Thank you so much. And they're so oblivious to their own behavior, like literally, because in the same meeting or time together, they do something so funky about themselves. I'm literally scratching my head going, I can't believe I just got that advice, that level. I mean, just incredible level of just emotional awareness about others that I was like, wow, that was incredible advice. And then at the same time, I watched them, become a 10-year-old.
Yeah. Well, so hypersensitive to the awareness of others. Yeah. And there may be a blind spot towards self. So this is what we talk about in our leadership programs, and is the self-awareness is where our focus ends up being, because it's usually where people's blind spot is. It's easy to point the finger out and see what's wrong with other folks, right? But the awareness of self is where real growth comes in.
So what do we? So I want to get to the meat of this right now, because if I'm listening to this, I'm literally like, okay, what? So what do I need to do? Like what is it? What is it that we can talk about that literally is going to allow someone to go on this self-aware journey? And I agree with you, because it is self-awareness.
Yeah.
I in my own book, I start off right out of the bat. I call it recognition. Like recognition is the key, is what I talk about. How recognition is totally correct. So recognizing your own behavior, recognizing the triggers, recognizing those things that set you off, so that you can manage your own emotions.
So you did. I split that into two different parts: recognition, seeing it, and then understanding it is the next step, right? So recognizing the trigger and what that trigger does to me, typically.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you recognize? There's physiological changes that you can see and feel. Anger is an easy one, right? For me, my ears get red. Actually, my whole face gets red, but I can feel the steam coming out my ears when there's anger. It's a physiological change in me. Blood pressure goes up, heart rate goes up. All those kind of things end up happening, and whoa, something there. So when I feel that. When I take the time to feel that, then I need to explore it. Okay, well, what is that? Oh, this one's anger. Well, what's making you angry? Well, the answer is always they are. No, it's not they that are making you angry. It's your reaction to what is happening. The stimuli is where the anger comes in. It is 100% on me. It is not their fault that I'm angry, no matter what they've done.
Yeah.
I have the ability to manage that stimuli and how it affects me if I take the time to manage it. If I recognize, understand, and then some management techniques. We can talk about those when we get to that part as well.
I was having lunch today. It made me think of all the things that set you up for success for the day. When you think about, when you're totally self-aware of your own emotional state and the triggers that bring you to anger or stress or anxiety, right? So I was talking to another EO member, and we were having lunch, and they were asking questions around. I recently gave a presentation around owning your calendar and some things that you can do. And one of the things I talked about habit stacking, right? And I go all the way down to the detail of, man, I pour the water in my tea kettle the night before and it's plugged in and ready to go. My breakfast is out and ready to go. And the dog food is all out and ready to go. So it saves me 10 minutes. But what it really saves me is a boatload of stress, because I know I've got the time I need to get out the door on time and get to where I need to go stress-free.
Without skipping the tea, the breakfast, the whatever things.
Any of that. Yeah. Where I think what happens so often is we start the day wrong because we're immediately rushing out the door. We're late. We're stressed. We're now we start into the self-deprecation because we're pissed off that we're late. We can't get our shit together and all of that. Example. So it reminded me, I was late today. I was late coming over to this podcast. I committed to 4:30. I got here around 4:50. A lot of stuff happened, but shit, guys, life is going to happen, right? So I have two choices. I can get completely stressed out, create a whole bunch of anxiety, or get over here, take some deep breaths. So I did that before I came in. I took some deep breaths. I calmed myself down. I walked in and immediately, sincerely, genuinely let you know how much I apologize, because it was creating a lot of stress and anxiety to get over here. Now, that being said, I was able to walk in the door at that point, be self-aware of the emotional state from all of that creates. Those are triggers to set this up for success. My point being is, what happens so often, this whole idea, we've talked about this, of checking your emotions at the door. Sorry, guys, you can't just turn it off like a light switch. It's not a spigot.
It's where the management piece comes in.
It is, right? It is, and be aware of that. Take a step out, like things like this. if you're in an emotional state that's not going to make you productive in a meeting, step out of the meeting. Just excuse yourself.
So let me take your example here too, because I've got some responsibility in this as well. If I'm going to be a leader, if I'm going to be a partner, if I'm going to be whatever it is that I need to be as well. I have a really serious relationship with time. I do. I think being on time is an important thing. Start on time, finish on time.
It is important.
I think it's important. And I also recognize that stuff happens to folks. So here's what I could have done. I could have attempted to make your day even worse, right? You're doing your stress management technique, taking the deep breaths, clearing your mind, doing all that. And if you walked into a buzzsaw, which could happen, right? In my old days, it would have happened. Then that just potentially could allow you to get back into that same spot and ruin everything that you're doing as well. So it is 100% on you, and now it's also now 100% on me to be better too.
It's a great lesson, because I think more often than not, that's the emotional awareness that you have, because me being late was also a trigger for you. So again, you could have reacted in the other way, which I think most often, not with you, but most leaders react in that way.
My old self did.
We've recently talked about that. I think it causes people to tailspin. But again, it's what does that accomplish when you know that I already spent the whole drive over here beating myself up, right? So what good is it going to do for you to beat me up on top of that? But I think that's what we do as leaders. I think it's more common than it isn't. And I think I use this adage because I coached my daughter in softball all the way through high school. And it was the coach at third base. We've talked about this before. It's the kid swings at a bad pitch, and the coach at third base says, "Don't swing at that." Thanks, Captain Obvious.
Right.
Well, she already knew that. Yeah. She already knew that. I don't need to say.
He compounded the stress level.
I don't need to say anything.
Right.
She already knew she swung at a bad pitch.
So here's what we're saying though, right? So I can still hold people accountable. And I could have chosen two different ways. I could have said, "Damn it, just get here on time so we can get this thing started and potentially add to your stress if you didn't know how to manage that properly, right?"
Yeah.
Or I can say, help and release, do what I can to help and release so that we can have a good podcast. And on the way out the door, say, "Hey, by the way, Tuesday when we get back together, I'll be here on time."
Yeah.
I'm still going to hold you accountable, right?
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
But timing on that accountability piece.
Yeah.
Why tell that kid not to swing at that bad pitch? Because they got to go up there and swing again, right? Do I want to add more stress to them? Anyway, so that's just some of the things that 100% responsibility on you, but I have 100% responsibility on me as well.
Yeah.
So you said something earlier that I wanted to talk about, and you said react to, the word react to.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about that a lot in this book. I prefer to act upon information, not react to it. There's a difference in my mind in those. So that's
a difference.
That's how I frame it in my head so that I can act upon information instead of reacting to it.
Yeah.
And when I do that, I do better. So that's what I teach.
Yeah.
Do better, right? So that's just one little technique. There's some others. So we talk about in the book and some of the techniques. I thought this metaphysical mindfulness stuff was nonsense 10, 15 years ago. I don't believe that anymore. I meditate every day. I do breath work every day. Mm-hmm. It's a practice for me. And I'll tell you why I do it. One, I feel better during the day when I do that. But the practice of the breath work allows me to pull it up when I need it on a moment's notice. And in one breath, I can let go and get back into a centered spot. Mm-hmm. Because I've done the 5 to 10 minutes a day for 2.5 years. I know how to do it. I know what it does. I can put myself in that state with one breath now.
Well, let's talk about it for a second, because even with a single breath, it's deep in through the nose out through the mouth.
That's out. Let it out.
Well,
Let
and
it
no,
out.
so here's an even more powerful one that I learned as I've gone through guided meditation, which I recommend for anybody, is in through the nose, and then make the sound. So the vibration, believe it or not, that vibration is really incredible to the body, and it is an even more powerful release than just the breath itself. So I do think breath work is something I work on as well and continue to work on.
Two things. Breath work takes time and practice, and so especially for us entrepreneurs, a lot of us have this ADD quality. We chase shiny balls, and it's kind of hard to focus for very long. So it takes practice to get to a spot where you can practice the work. And I start with a couple minutes a day, get it up to 5 to 10 minutes a day. And breath work is different than meditation. Meditation uses breath work techniques, and it's at a different level. So what is meditation? Meditation is the concept of just clearing your mind. Well, I can't do that. Sure you can.
You can.
It takes practice.
And it's amazing. I use the Headspace app. I do recommend it. I think I'm ready to potentially graduate from that one. I've taken a ton of the courses, and so I think as you get into some more traditional yoga meditation, yogi meditation, I think all of that stuff is interesting. I would just tell you, go on your own journey, and it's easier. I think I had the misnomer of, oh, I have to go get some special setup in order to meditate, and I have to have the room and the ambiance and all that. You don't. You sit on your couch. You throw some headphones on. Get started on the Headspace app, and that's all you need. You need a quiet space, a comfortable space that puts you in a place where you can. So meditate.
I'm a big fan of the guided meditation for people to get started, because they help you walk through that.
Oh yeah.
I don't do guided anymore. I do my own meditation, and there's a technique that this is just fun for me to talk about this stuff. So technique, and say, well, I've got all these thoughts that come. Yeah, thoughts are going to come in. So what I do in my meditation is I have these thoughts. When thoughts come in, I purposely turn those into clouds. That thought becomes a cloud, and the cloud floats off in a sense, peaceful. Right. So that's one technique. The other one that I like to use is, now I've done something that's kind of controversial. Not everyone, but I've gone down to an ayahuasca retreat down in Costa Rica.
Wow.
So I did ayahuasca for a week with the shamans and all that kind of stuff. And while I'm not a true fan, we'll call it fan, like I'm not going to keep doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I did learn a few things about myself in that meditative state. One of the interesting things about ayahuasca is they tell you that there are times that you can see geometric designs, like it looks like a kaleidoscope. So cool and kind of freaky at the same time, right? It's like watching Fantasia. So it's odd. But sometimes I do meditation and I close my eyes and I'm looking for a geometric design because I've seen it in, the induced state.
Yeah.
So I come back and try to call that back, and I look for this little triangle or a box or something, and it's always a little colorful. It's right in the center between my eyes. And that relaxes me so much that I am able to clear my mind of all the other things that I'm talking about.
Well, they say I've learned so much. I mean, I feel like this should be a podcast episode on its own. I want to hear more about that experience. And I think
a lot of people like hearing about it.
We could go on and on about meditation, and I'll leave it at this, the last part, because I do want to talk about something else before we finish up. But resistance is one of the key things that I've learned in order to really meditate and really get deep and really clear my mind. We inherently resist the feelings and emotions that come to us. We get angry. We get angry about something, and we resist that anger. Right. Or we love something or want to cry, and we resist it.
Right.
And those are two extreme examples, but just like when you talked about meditating, the thoughts, we're trying to meditate, we're trying really hard to meditate, and the thoughts come in and we resist it. I want to resist the thoughts. But reality is what true meditation will teach you is let those things flow through you and right back out. And so Scott used the example of turning the thoughts into clouds and letting those clouds disappear. It's the same with emotions. So as we talk about emotions, one thing that I've learned that has helped me is I get that trigger, and I'm still working on this, but I'm a lot less resistance to the feeling and the emotion, and I let it happen. I let it happen and I release it.
So recognize it, allow for it. I'm going to put another word in here, label it. Oh, that's anger. Then I can let it go. So labeling it takes its power away.
Yeah.
Takes that mystical power, that anger just, gets you all bent out of shape. But if you can just label, that's just anger. Right?
Hello, anger. You decided to come back. Yeah. Thank you.
Sadness is the same thing, right? Same thing. Oh, I feel sad. Oh, that's just sadness. Okay, I get why that is. Okay, good. I can move on and get my day going on now too.
I would tell you, so the last thing that I would love to leave our listeners with, and what was the biggest shift for me, and really the self-awareness around emotions. Oh, we got a friend who's joining us for the podcast right now.
Come here, Rafa.
So the interesting thing is triggers, right? And I mentioned that, and I think really becoming aware of what the triggers are in my life that create anger or frustration or stress, anxiety, all those things that really trigger that. That's huge, because I can remove. Some are out of my control, and so okay, I have to act right on whatever it is that happens. But there's a lot of triggers that I can just eliminate. I actually can not put myself in a situation where I know that trigger exists.
To avoid the trigger.
So there are certain things, but you've got to recognize those. Like, you have to understand what those triggers are. You have to not only recognize them, but identify them. I like your suggestion. Call that out by name.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's really going to set me off. And if it's someone else that you feel is setting you off, if there's a behavior that's going on. My wife, for example, her and I have both talked through these things where I've said, when you do this, this is how it makes me feel. When you say stuff like this is how it makes me feel. And we've moved on from those. It's really great, because she said, wow, I never knew that, and I've said, oh, I didn't know that I was doing that. I was totally oblivious to that behavior. Thank you for calling me out.
Your spouses, your partners, your children, your employees, they don't want you feeling bad.
Yeah.
Allow them to know what the behavior looks like, and how you internalize that. And most people react pretty well to that.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that as well. But you got to go back to that psychological safety we've been talking about for the past month and a half. It's got to create that era of safety. That I'm allowed to talk to my wife about these things, right? Yeah. And in the space that it is time. You'd mentioned before that you've got a situation with your wife that when you are at emotional overload, you have agreed to defer the topic till the morning, right? My tank is empty.
Yep.
Something along those lines.
That's exactly right. Battery. I mean, we just talked about our battery being, starts the day at 100%. And I might come home and it's at 10%, and there might be something really important that she wants to talk about, and she comes at me with it, and I might just say, I can't have this conversation right now. I'm at 10%. Can we defer to the next day?
As long as you schedule it for the next day, and you don't ignore it the next day, and you have a willing partner, whether that's a business partner or a partner at home, doesn't matter. These are people. And people act the way people act.
But again, it's the self-awareness of that I don't have enough battery to have a productive conversation around certain things. Yeah. And you have to be able to and be willing to step aside, wait on it, postpone it, but not completely avoid it.
Yeah. So we think emotional intelligence is all about awareness of others, awareness of self. It's also about managing the information, the data
Yeah.
of the awareness of where they are, and empathy comes into play here,
Yeah.
and where you are. And it's really a simple concept.
Yeah.
And it's deep at the same time. I say this a lot. It's simple, it's just not easy.
Yeah. At the end, I'll just leave it at this: is look in a mirror. I mean, you got to look in a mirror, and I would even go as far as this: forget about the mirror. Interview others. And I think that was the most compelling thing for me as I went through that process. Is I interviewed several different people close to me within my various communities, my, from my work to my family to, my friends.
There's tools that can do that for you as well if you're not in that spot yet. 360 evaluations, right? Here's what I think about me. Here's how I'm presenting to others, or how they're interpreting the presentation that right? And then looking at those differences. That's one.
Self-evaluation.
Having
I love
conversations with people that you can trust that are going to be honest with you, trust that are going to be willing to not be uncomfortable telling you the truth. The truth as they see it.
Yeah.
It may not be the truth that you see, but that's what we're trying to do. That self-awareness is how am I presenting and how are others interpreting that presentation? That's the emotional awareness, self-awareness piece that I think that a lot of leaders or just people in power, they could be cops, they could be, anyone with power has a difficult time with that concept because they're thinking about, getting the rules followed as opposed to working with that person who's across from me to get what we need done. Anyway.
You got it. Nailed it.
So, buy a book. It's called I Thought I Was a Leader. So I'll talk a little bit about this. This book it's a leadership book. It's a business book, but it's a personal story as well. And I'm working on talks about theory, practice, and principles. The principles that I'm working on in my life: vulnerability, empathy, and humility. I'm still working on the humility piece. That's the one that keeps eluding me. However, someone asked at my launch party the other night, someone asked the question, did you learn anything about yourself while you were writing the book? And I said, actually, I've been doing a lot of work on myself. What I learned was the process of writing the book made me much more aware of my actions, and I had to live up to the principles that were in the book during this. I think the podcast is the same thing.
Yeah.
We say these things out loud. Now we have to live up to them.
Got to practice. Right? Practice what we preach. I mean, that's the bottom line. You can't write about the topics that you have in here that are so important to successful leadership and not practice those.
I agree. All right, folks. So thanks for listening. We really appreciate the loyalty from the audience that we've had so far, and the growth. That's been fun to watch too. This has been we did this as a journey it's kind of a fun time for us to get together and talk about things that matter, and then come to find out that people are resonating with some of it. So it feels good.
Yeah.
So,
appreciate you as always. Okay. Until next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for joining us for the CEO Podcast. Please visit us at theceopodcast.net, where you can learn more about our co-hosts and listen to past episodes. If you would like to have a discussion and dive deeper into any topic, there is also an option to contact Scott or Vince to schedule some time with them. Thanks for listening.